working with different cultures, you need to be very, very careful not to take anything personal because everyone communicates differently. You have to, as you say, receive the feedback and take it. Of course, within the boundaries of respect. Analyze it, say what's good, and disregard what's bad. And that's it.
Welcome to the Hired Hub podcast, your ultimate guide to mastering the complexities of remote work and pushing your career forward.
Whether you're tuning in from the busy streets of Latin America or any corner of the globe, we're here to give you tools and insights to succeed in today's dynamic job market. I'm your host, Gaby Morales.
And I am your co-host, Jess Torres. If you're a recent graduate eager to leave your mark or a seasoned pro looking to redirect your career, you can join us as we explore the endless possibilities of remote work and career growth.
Get ready to unlock your full potential with the Hired Hub podcast.
Working from home doesn't mean you can't end up suffering from burnout, overwhelm, or depression. Work can be stressful and even more so if you specialize in fields that require finesse, precision, organization, and a lot of analysis.
A lot of freelance or work from home positions may offer a variety of benefits that traditional jobs don't. But both modalities still struggle in one common aspect: psychological safety. This term may sound awkward, to say the least, but the Harvard Business School explains it in simple terms. It's the shared belief held by members that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking.
So, how can we virtually perform in high demanding jobs and not sacrifice our mental well-being in the process? On this episode of the Hired Hub, we'll be talking about mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and building trust and connection with team members while still acing that top management role you're meant for.
Of course, we have a top-tier guest today, a finance director that works for 3 different companies, and all virtually, which is very impressive.
Maria Fernandez is a seasoned specialist with more than 14 years of experience in managing company finances. Her journey from private banking to remote financial mastery having affected her chill in the slightest, and we're eager to know how she does it.
Maria, welcome to the show. We've actually been working together for more than 2 years, and I gotta admit, I've never seen you lose your cool. Is it a personality trick, or where does that steadiness come from?
Well, I would like to say it's my personality, but I think it's more about experience. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thank you for being here in our 13th episode. We have as a first topic balancing financial rigor with mindfulness. And now working with numbers is a very rigorous job. So we want to ask you, how did you figure out how to maintain financial discipline and attention to detail in remote work environment where distractions are abundant?
Well, I think what I mentioned, the first time experience, unfortunately, there's nothing written on stone. There's something that you have to leave your work or your professional experience to understand how the world functions, okay? So being in this finance industry, it's very challenging for people sometimes because there's a lot to pay attention. There's a lot, as you say, to those little details that we need to consider on our day-to-day activities. So having that amount of responsibility every day, at least for me, has helped me build this personality in which I need to be focused and understand what I need to prioritize, to not overwhelm so quick, because we're humans and at some point we will feel overwhelmed about the amount of responsibilities that we have, not only in the workspace, but also on your personal level. Because the mind is a precious gift that we have been given, but also it could be the worst danger that we have. because we can jeopardize ourselves in a level that we don't even realize until the point that you have reached your point of no return, unfortunately. So yeah, I feel like every experience that we have in all our life aspects teaches how to deal with everything. But what I think what's most important also is for us to realize what's going on, because sometimes we don't take the time, let's say, to ask ourselves what's going on. Do I feel okay? Am I okay with this? I'm comfortable with this. What's going on right now that probably is not working properly with me or with my environment that I could change, I could maintain, or that will help me feel better. Okay. So yeah, as you say, discipline is very important, and that's worked with habits along the way. And habits, for habits, you need to be in a constant learning curve for everything that you tried in your life.
I feel like a lot of what you say resonates so much with me. For me, I also have a very high demanding job, and definitely you need to be very conscious of yourself, not only like during your work, but really in life in general. When you grow up, you'll notice that the only person that can take care of your well-being is yourself. No one will
Exactly.
take better care of you than yourself. So being able to set boundaries to really find a dynamic that works for you is essential. I feel like that experience of transitioning from a traditional workspace to remote can be very challenging, and it's very different for everyone. For me, with this high demanding job, I usually really thrive by compartmentalizing, being able to separate by time slots everything I'm doing, having a clear agenda. When you're doing a simple job, it's easy for others to remind you what you have to do. You have maybe a manager or a coordinator or someone else telling you hey, you have this agenda for the day, you have these responsibilities. But when you're in a top management position, maybe like yours as a director, I'm a COO of a company, there's no one else telling you what you need to do. You have to set that agenda for yourself. You have to be able to organize your day and have clarity of the priorities that you have. And it can become overwhelming. So you need to be very conscious of yourself. You need to be very disciplined and organized in order to thrive, because then it's just gonna suck you in. And I feel like also something that works for me is being able to disconnect. And it's part of that compartmentalizing my life. When I'm working, you best believe that I'm working and I'm doing everything I can to do the best job that I can. But when I'm not, don't call me. Really just don't. Because I need to be able to disconnect so that when I come back to work, I am as productive and efficient as I can be, and I am as focused. If I'm outside of work thinking of work, that generates a whole imbalance in life. And I feel like that's why mindfulness is very important. You need to, if you want to be high performing, you have to also take care of your well-being. It's unnegotiable.
And the beauty about mindfulness and emotional intelligence is that it's not only the beauty of the way you think about yourself, or if you take care or not of about yourself. It's the beauty of understanding that you have a place, that you're, as a human, you're in a place in which you need to understand why, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And if you're doing it the way that you would love to. Just to be conscious about that. It's just for you to understand your internal responsibilities, because it's also the drive for control, a way to control your emotions and avoid impulsiveness. That's very important, especially on leadership positions, because that is not only something that you need to apply to your work, but also that you'll need to prove and teach your team members how to deal with it. So yes, it's something that with time you'll, of course, if you discover these, if I would read more about this when I was younger, I think it would have helped me a lot to understand and probably avoid times of depression, because it's very delicate when people are so with so many things inside that cannot handle, especially with emotions.
Absolutely. Like, absolutely. Mindfulness is very important. Again, I feel like it's something that we're learning more about today. Like, I feel like 5 years ago, this conversation wasn't that relevant. Like, maybe it was being, but maybe I was too young to understand it. And I didn't, like, no one told me that it was that important. And nowadays, I really value it because it's definitely essential. And it's so easy to get lost, to lose that mindfulness, to lose that consciousness. So, Maria, I ask you, do you have any techniques for mindfulness or practices that you found particularly helpful in managing, those complexities of the operations that you have to handle day to day and across those multiple companies that you manage?
Well, there's a lot of things that anyone could do, but I think the best technique is the one that you discover is good for you. There's a lot of things that you could practice. You could try meditation, but for example, for me, I don't like meditation. I don't think it relaxes me. It's funny, but for me, it doesn't work. But for example, what has worked for me is going on, for example, taking morning walks. It clears my
Oh,
mind.
yeah.
I after like 2 weeks of doing it, I understood, okay, there's something here. Doing this exercise just free my mind from everything, all the voices or everything that I'm thinking every day or that I need to pay attention of. So when the time comes to start working, I'm more relaxed. Okay, I drain all that bad energy that I had before start working. And it could be, for example, listening to music while working if I'm by myself, especially because we work remotely. And it doesn't sound like it, but I feel like working remotely has more work to do because you have to be in there at any time, and not at any time during your schedule, but being there trying to focus every time on what you need to do during your remote work schedule. And I've had relatives. I feel like even I have relatives that are still working on site, and they say, I feel you are sometimes more busy than I am while I'm working on site. And yes, it's true. If you analyze it, it is. And it's also important, as you mentioned, Gaby, taking breaks, taking the time, just taking the time until you reach the point where you're relaxed, more relaxed as possible, that when you come back to your work, it won't affect your activity. Because if you don't take the time to understand what's going on with you internally, then you'll translate into a different message in your day-to-day work. Probably you will treat in a bad way to your team members. Probably your messages won't be understood. So, and also planning with your team members, it could be jeopardized because you are not on your play. I mean, you are not in a position to sit down and say, okay, this is what we need to prioritize. No, because if you let stress handle your day to day, you won't be able to do your job. So that's very important. And yeah, and for example, on the finance side, I've worked years ago. I've worked in the banking industry, and I feel I had a leadership position on a very young age, and I had to have big responsibilities so fast, so young, that after I left that position and that work is where I understood this is what was going on with me. I didn't feel good. I probably was on a depression mode, but as I was so active because I was working so much, I didn't pay attention to it. So you see how dangerous it could be. Exactly. And I could tell you, and my former coworkers could say, but you were so happy, you were so active, and you were so talkative. Yes, I was, because I was on a constant activity. But on my mind, I was not, because I was feeling so stressful. Probably I was trying to avoid the situation by just working and working and working. And it was not after years that I by myself noticed this is what was going on. Once I left that job, for example, I felt a relief. And that's it. That's why people needs to put the level of awareness on this type of situations, because sometimes we don't understand. We don't know everything. I mean, not everyone is a psychologist or a therapist that could help us identify those triggers. But you with time you get to understand the importance of noticing those emotions that you probably have, that people could think, oh, that person is so in a bad humor. No, probably something's going on with her. So part of the also for to find best practices for you to calm down is also to be humble enough to understand someone else.
Yeah, to be empathetic.
I think that's really important because when you know something's going on, you can understand better. So it's like, is there a way I can help you? How are you feeling now? What have you been doing to feel better? And for preparing this podcast, I was investigating. I don't know a lot of mindfulness techniques, but something that really helped me besides walking, and you said it also, I love walking, and it's like it really, like, this is stressful. I don't know, like, it's really nice for your body and your mind. Something that really helps me too, it's breathing. Sometimes when I'm really stressed or like anxious or just thinking about a lot of things that I have to do, like, I do forget how to breathe. Sometimes it's like, okay, I need to breathe. Okay, so I take my time and I'm like being conscious about breathing. It's really important because we do it automatically and we forget about breathing in the right way.
Exactly.
So that's something that for me has been helping me. Also, I didn't know a lot about like making lists, like gratitude lists. What do I have today, or like taking notice of things that make my day better and try to do them during my day. It's like an body scan, like also trying to be away from the computer for a while because we're here all day, and it's like, hey, I have a time to eat lunch where I'm supposed to eat lunch. I have time to be with my family. I have to time to be with, actually, if you have pets, with my dog or whatever. That's really important. You being conscious of timing and spaces that are around you, I think, makes a lot of difference. So now that we talked about mindfulness, we want to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence and remote team. So in your experience, how does emotional intelligence contribute to the success of remote teams, especially in the realm of finance?
It has a big influence because in a team, in all kind of teams, in a company or everywhere, you need to first you need to build trust. You need to build trust, and by building trust, you need to get to know your team. Okay, and by being remote, sometimes it's not only being connected, sending messages. You need to interact with them. So even though that sometimes people say, "Oh, that I'd rather have remote work because I won't have people interactions every day because I don't know, I don't want to talk to people because sometimes it happens." You need it, and you need it because you can get to a point of loneliness that you don't understand, and probably your team won't build that trust bond with you as a leader or as your that connection exactly. So you have to have, for example, those one-on-one meetings, just in building activities, just to get to know the person, even though it's miles away from you. But I mean, you can't forget that you're dealing with people, you're dealing with humans with emotions. And if at some point you notice that being on site, you didn't realize that sometimes people has issues, problems, personal problems. Imagine remotely that you don't see them, you don't interact them. So it's very important to get that interaction every day, weekly, the way it works for you, but to have it, to get to know your team, so you can also, as a leader, understand who you can trust, who can collaborate or cooperate or bring actually efficiency to the activities. Okay, so to listen, it's very important. It's very important to listen to everyone's opinion, even though you don't agree with them. But the beauty about this is that for you to understand that you don't always have the reason on something. And when you listen to someone else, you need to reevaluate probably the way you're considering things. And you might say, you know what? Yes, that person is right. Probably the way I was thinking is not the most proper. So it's valid to give the opportunity to others to propose, to also to let them propose, so they don't have the fear of speaking. Okay, because sometimes we have so introvert team members that has a tremendous beautiful ideas that they don't share. And it's important for a supervisor or a leader to listen to everyone. If we don't consider everyone's opinions, then we, at least for me, I'm not doing my job as a leader. So probably by listening to them, sometimes by listening to them, you can understand if someone is probably having some personal issues by the tone of their voice, or by the way they are communicating. If they have a more aggressive way of communication, probably something's going on there. And that's something that we need to pay attention to also. Part of the emotional intelligence is how you deal with your emotions on your everyday, on your in your relationship with your family, with your co-workers, because that way, as I was saying at the beginning, impulsiveness can be avoided. Sometimes impulsiveness, not thinking analytically and with the time that it needs, what you want to say or what you want to express, can lead to big misunderstandings. That's a very, very big issue that sometimes we have in every company, that because of impulsiveness, sometimes coworkers cannot relate.
It's because they can't relate. They have a hard time relating. Usually people that are not emotionally intelligent, they tend to have struggles with communicating their decisions or how they feel about things. So it's very hard for you to be relatable when really you're not showing any kind of emotions to people that they could relate to. And of course they end up thinking, okay, this person is acting on a whim. I feel like with top management and high demanding jobs, emotional intelligence is essential. And not just because you need to be aware of your own feelings, but you need to be able to be aware of the feelings of others. Because like you say, that's what really generates connections. So when you're unable to be aware of yourself and to do that introspective work first of analyzing how you feel, it's very hard when it comes to you trying to understand how others feel.
Exactly. You need to turn off the judgment.
And it really creates a barrier of miscommunication.
Yeah. You need to turn off the judgment that will drive your impulsiveness.
It at the end creates it cultivates a supportive work culture where you can actually see and you can trust the people that you work with, because emotional intelligent people, they don't get easily offended when they're criticized about their job because they see it as feedback, regardless of how harsh it may sound. And ideally it shouldn't be harsh. You should be able to communicate peacefully and with your members and be able to provide feedback, even if it's harsh to listen, even if it's, critical. But when you're emotionally intelligent, you're able to dissect what you need to learn from it and then move forward and not take it personal. Or take it personal to the level of, okay, I really need to improve on this, because you need to understand that the way that you communicate is not always the way that it's interpreted. Like the message that you give is what you want to do, or how you want to be perceived is not always how you are perceived. And when you receive feedback on that not following through, on that not being the case, the best that you can do is listen to it. So emotional intelligence allows you to be a good leader in the sense that you start listening to the people that you're working with and actually understanding them and relating to them.
And working with multicultural team members, it's something that we need to be very careful, because I think you have talked this in the past in other episodes that I listen, because I listen to every episode that you guys. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. We have a fan.
Yes, you have a fan. So yes, well, working with different cultures while remote work, you need to be very, very careful not to take anything personal, because everyone communicates differently. So you have to, as you say, receive the feedback and take it, of course, within the boundaries of respect, because that's something that we need to understand. If we are within the bandwidth of respect, perfect. Take that feedback, analyze it, say what's good, and disregard what's bad, and that's it. We don't need to handle an everyday confrontation just because you don't agree with someone else. That's not healthy.
Yeah. Maria, when you've had to foster this emotional intelligence within your team, what have been some challenges that you've encountered along the way? And how have you addressed them? Given the differences that everyone has. Like everyone has like a higher or lower level of emotional intelligence. We're all emotionally intelligent, like we're human beings. We're raised to have emotions and to feel them and act upon them. But what are the challenges that you see when you have to nurture that within your team members?
Well, listening. I have no other answer, because by listening to each of my team members, I don't know, it's something that I've developed within the years. Sometimes I can tell something is not right with this person. So if I have the opportunity, for example, to talk with all my team members, for them to open up about it, okay, just to understand what's going on, perfect. If we can have that conversation as a team, that is perfect, because everyone can just understand what's going on. But sometimes I've had the opportunity just to, for example, take one person aside privately to talk very on a personal matter, to understand what's going on. If I see that something that is not clicking within the team and this person, I've taken people aside and have just a deep conversation. What's going on? What do you feel about this? Why are you acting like this? If there's something about for example, your activities, your responsibilities, I mean, are you having personal issues that might be, affecting your work? If there's something that you don't feel comfortable with, because by building that trust level, then I can get the information I need just to see how emotional centered they are. Okay, it has happened. I've had situation with co-workers. It doesn't have, not even when I was in a leadership position, because that's something that we need to consider. This is not only a supervisor job, but you as a team or as a co-worker, you can take your colleague and ask the person, what's going on? I feel like you're not being like yourself, like you are. And fostering that with your team members and your colleague is something that for sure will strengthen the team work.
Yeah, and I also think that being in a remote environment, a challenge will be like lack of nonverbal cues, because they are typically present face-to-face interaction.
Exactly.
So like we were talking before, body language and facial expressions are really important. Before actually doing this episode, we're talking about, no, let's turn on the cameras because it's better the way that we talk and I can see your facial expressions so I can understand you better, so I can relate with you of what you're saying. If you're saying yes with your head, but you're probably not saying it with your words. So that's really important. And it's just sometimes it's really hard to maintain team cohesion and moral without personal interactions. So I just think that remote works can be sometimes really isolating, as we said. And probably it's a person that is suffering of depression, stress, anxiety, and just the way you said it. If we ask and we listen what that person is going through, we can actually be helpful because we don't know what that person is going through. Like, what if that person is thinking about committing suicide or something? And so I do think that's really important that we can be there for each other and understand that we are a team, not a competition. And also, so we've talked about mindfulness and emotional intelligence, but it's clear that trust and connection are vital and in any remote work environment, not just remote working, but also for people that work in the office. So, Maria, how do you establish and nurture trust among remote team members who may never met in person?
To not make everything about work. I mean, to take the opportunity to get to know the person, and I can give you a perfect example that I had with a former coworker that we had working remotely, actually. And by knowing this person, to be honest, I didn't have to meet with this person every day. It was not actually the dynamic. But at some point, I felt by the way she was communicating with me that I needed to meet more often with that person. And by doing that, I noticed something was going on with her. And something that's very important that I forgot to mention is to prioritize what you feel brings not relaxed, but for you to feel more comfortable with your everyday. So for what happened with this person, I tried to build that trust by talking to her, letting her vent the situations that she had. Of course, on the most professional way because we are on a workspace. But by doing that, she took a decision in which she said, you know that after everything that we have talked, that has helped me a lot. I understand that remote work is not for me. And you see, you're validating what's not working. And that's something very important.
Something very valid. Like we talk about remote work like being the modality of today and everything, but there's a lot of people that they can't thrive here. So if that's their issue, you have to be able to support them in that process too, to also guide them and really just let them know that it's not the worst thing. And really see how you can help them out there, because maybe this is not the right place for them, the work that they're doing right now, but you can support them in a more humanly aspect.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's communication is key. It's like essential. But honest communication doesn't come without building trust. And the only way that you can build trust is by being genuine with the things you're doing to create that connection with your teams. Like, people have to see that it's genuine, that you want to know about them, that you want to know how they're doing. You want to know about their struggles, not only in their work life, but of course, if there's something outside that's affecting them, also be able to support them in that. Like, just listen to them out. And if it's needed, like as a leader, as top management, having that top management position where you have high demanding expectations, and then you have to supervise people, you have to be able to consider their feelings and how they're feeling and be genuine about it. I feel like something that works for me too is accountability. Like, an issue that I see with my team members, with the people that I supervise a lot of times, is that they're not clear on the expectations that we have from them. Or that they don't know exactly what their roles and responsibilities are. And that generates frustration on all parts, because then we don't see the performance that we're expecting, but then they don't know what to do. And that generates a whole environment where it's hard to thrive because people don't want to talk. When you're overwhelmed, by the way, is when you're more prone to breaking connections, with breaking communications, because you want to focus so much on the job that you do. You're like, I don't have time for conversations. So definitely the communication has to be genuine and has to be steady. It has to be consistent. Like, it can't happen only in the challenging moments, but actually it has to be consistent throughout the whole process so that people create the habit of communicating. And at the same time, if you foster accountability, you can also expect people, you can give people clear expectations, which is, I feel like this is the number one tip that I always hear for good leaders and good managers. Like, being able to express the expectations and be clear about your expectations, it helps people deliver. And then it helps people feel more purposeful because they know exactly what they're needed to do and how to do it. So that really helps. And I feel like the other thing, and you mentioned this, like the part of collaboration and camaraderie, like it's not just communicating about work, it's really being able to communicate about other things. And so even maybe you're not a fan of having friends in the workplace, you still need to be able to try to establish a deeper connection with your team members.
Yes, exactly.
Because just talking about work all the time is not gonna get you to the finish line. Like, you really need to be able to distance yourself from work and really humanize the people that you work with. Like, and those are the things that talking about work don't do. Like, if you're always talking about work, you can't humanize that person. You don't remember that that person has a life outside of the Zoom screen. So like fostering that sense of camaraderie or collaboration, I feel it's key. And then the last thing I would say is just leading by example. Like, it's so important to act what you preach.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
if you're honest, if you're transparent, if you're integral, that's the example that you're giving others.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're someone that, for example, something very important that you mentioned was consistency. If you're someone that you don't spend time sharing, I don't know, experiencing with your team members, just having meetings that are not related to work, or probably work-related meetings in which you acknowledge the work that everyone is doing, then if you don't give that example of being there for your team, by the time you would like to talk with someone else, you want to have the trust enough from them to open up.
Yeah. And the thing is that if you only do it in challenging moments, people are not going to believe you. They're going to be like, why are you here right now? Like, it's not genuine. Absolutely. Maria, can you share a memorable experience where actually fostering emotional intelligence played a big role in strengthening relationships within your remote finance teams?
Well, I have so many, but I can tell you that going back to the banking industry where I was working there, we went through a situation in which a lot of people was just being laid off, and people was just leaving because they were looking for other opportunities. It was a country and also the company where it was situation, and it reached a point in which, of course, I did not have control of anything. And I was getting so frustrated that I was just talking with them. How can we go through this? So if I need to step down as a supervisor and go in and help you, I will do it. And that was something that they loved to hear from me, because they were feeling the same way, because they were losing coworkers that they normally used to share the workload, for example, and they were getting frustrated because they were getting all the workload. So that experience helped us to work together, irrespectively of the title that we had. And I believe that that's something that worked perfectly. And something else that I believe it's something, it relates to everyone, that it was the pandemic. the pandemic, I was not working remotely, and we were forced to work remotely. And I was working in an oil and gas company in which everything was needed to be done in the office. We had everything there. So we went home and we needed information from each other, and we needed to be in constant communication just to go through what we needed. So being, as you said, communication among coworkers, among team members, it's key. It's key for this.
Yeah, and I also think that when tension runs high, it's when we're most likely to break the communication and have misunderstandings.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we recognize, if we're able to recognize that importance of emotional intelligence, we just can prioritize communication during challenging times. And we can create spaces for open dialogue to express our thoughts, concerns, frustrations, just be open and sincere about what is going on. And I think that one of the most important things is seek for solutions. If we don't seek for solutions, we're going to get stuck in circles and circles and circles, and we're going to lose time, motivation, a lot of things. So it's just the matter of identifying those strategies to distribute tasks, clarify expectations, and provide additional support. So if one person, as you said, it's having a lot of workload, it's like, how can all the team members help? Because we're a team. It's not, again, it's not a competition about who is better or who is going to do the best worker, you know? It's like we are building this together.
Exactly. Seek for help.
Absolutely.
We're coming to an end. It's always a great conversation.
Yes. Maria, a huge thank you for sharing with us all those tips and tricks to staying mindful and productive in our workspace, even if it's high demanding.
And as usual, thank you to our listeners for staying with us until the very end of this episode from the Hired Hub.
Remember, we have new episodes dropping every Tuesday on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast.
And whether you're a business owner, exploring remote work, or a job seeker navigating the remote job market, remember the future is filled with possibilities.
Don't forget to follow us on social media through the Hired Remotely's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok accounts. This is Gaby.
And this is Jess. Until next time, bye-bye.
That wraps another episode of the Hired Hub podcast. We hope you found today's discussion empowering and insightful. Remember, success in the world of remote work is within your reach, and we're here to support you every step of the way.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert advice and engaging conversations. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to help us reach more people who can benefit from the Hired Hub podcast.